I see fluency in a foreign language as breaking down into 5 different areas, 5 types of fluency that exists in any language in the world. And having this understanding will allow you to get really clear on your goals for a foreign language and set healthy expectations for yourself that you can actually maintain as you go through it. Hi, my name's Zachary. I'm an author and a polyglot, and today I want to talk to you about what I see and what I write about as the 5 different types of fluency and why you should have this as your understanding too. So let's get into it. So the 5 types are native, near native, academic, industrial, and conversational fluency. And the same applies to literacy as well, with the exception of conversational literacy that doesn't exist, but it would be explorative literacy as I describe it at least. But we'll get to that in a moment. So native fluency, this is the language that has gotten the most time and attention from day one for you in your life. So back whenever you were itty bitty baby, you were getting most of your time spoken to in one language, okay? Even in bilingual and multilingual households, there will only be one language that actually gets the majority proportion of your time and attention and effort. So that will be, in my opinion, your true native language. If you grew up in, like I said, a bi or a multilingual household, I understand if you would say that you have 3 native languages or something. Like, I get it, but in my opinion, on a matter of principle, it comes down to 1. The other ones would be near native fluency. In that regard, native fluency can't really be attained by somebody that's learning the language just on principle, because you haven't been there since birth. You don't have that background knowledge, the cultural knowledge that somebody that are an actual native would actually have. Near native fluency, any student can achieve that. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of study. It's going to take a lot of years. If somebody speaks, this is what I fear most people make the mistake of calling fluency. Just if they say, oh, I'm fluent in X, I fear that this is what people assume fluency to mean, when this is not the one that it should be. Near native fluency means, like for me, I grew up in America. I speak American English as my native language, so I have a native fluency in American English. I can speak, read, write, hear just about anything in English, and yes, the other spoken dialects like British, Scottish, Irish English, and I can understand just about everything. If I don't understand it, that's because I don't understand the concept. It's not a matter of the language. You can get as close to that as possible in a foreign language as a student, but it's going to take a long, long time. You're very, very likely going to need to live in a country that speaks that foreign language, and it's going to need to be your daily language for a long time. The concepts, the structures of the language should just come naturally, as though I'm speaking to you right now. So if that's your goal, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of practice. It's going to take a deep understanding of the idioms and the cultural references, but even still, your accent is very likely still going to shine through, just peek through a little bit, even after 10, 15, or 20 years. You're still going to not get some references that somebody that grew up in that culture or grew up in that setting, you're going to miss some of those references. And that's what's going to keep, those are some of the things, more than just principle, that are going to keep you from attaining a true native fluency. You can be near native, but if you didn't grow up in it, you're not going to have a native fluency. And that's okay. And this near native fluency, like I said, and I will keep saying, it's going to feel like it takes forever, because it basically does. But there are easier goals to attain. There are easier levels of fluency to attain that may be much more suited to what you're after. Enter academic fluency. That's the goal that you would set if you're learning for a degree for a specific field of study. Like, let's say it's just a simple degree requirement here in America, or you want to learn about a specific area of study or interest in a foreign language, to either just learn about it or to teach it. That would be academic fluency. There's industrial fluency, which is basically the same, but for a specific area of business. So you may not be wanting to understand the philosophy of it, but let's say that you want to get into some hospitality industry, or you want to expand to a new market for automobiles, or whatever your area of business is. Understanding the industry-specific jargon and how to communicate with the professionals in that industry will bring you to an industrial fluency. With both of these, though, academic and industrial, You'll have that specialized knowledge of the language, and yes, you'll still need to learn the basic grammar structures. What I see as what's going to suffer for you in this instance, though, is your conversational fluency. You're likely going to be so focused on learning the academic or industrial application of what you're learning of the foreign language, and that's probably not going to make you so keen on daily conversation, on talking about your favorite cup of coffee or the nice park that you like that's like on the other side of town or something. So these other, perhaps more broadly applicable uses of the language may suffer for you, and that may be just okay because you have this specific idea, this specific fluency that you're going for. It's still conceptually different, and that's the point that I'm trying to make here. Is academic and industrial fluency, they're their own things. They're perfect. There are perfectly legitimate reasons to go for these and kind of let conversational fluency go to the wayside, but it's a different type of fluency. And even still, not the one. These are not the types of fluency that I think you should associate with fluency. So, last but not least, is the one that you should. Conversational fluency. Conversational fluency and explorative literacy are the two things that I think everybody should set as their baseline for a goal in learning a new language, unless you have some like really specific desire or immediate need, but eventually understanding the daily application and being able to produce and consume the language like that is going to help you a lot. And the explorative literacy is very much the same, only reading, of course. So it's the lowest bar and it's the one that's most broadly applicable. Does that mean it's easy? Not necessarily, but it's going to take a lot less time to reach conversational fluency and explorative literacy than any of the other ones. And it's going to be, again, more broadly applicable. You can appreciate much more of the language, the culture, and the everything about the language if you're not in this one little box that you're trying to fit into. What does it mean, though, whenever you're there? If you're able to speak about daily occurrences, about daily life, and about your personal interests, that's conversational fluency. The thing that applies to both, and it's the same thing with explorative literacy. If you can read about things that you enjoy, if you can read about daily occurrences and daily things, then you're there. The thing that makes explorative literacy explorative, and that applies also to conversational fluency, if you're able to learn in the language, like ask a question in the language, get the answer in the language, and then digest that information in the language and just understand that without ever translating it back to your native language, in my case, English. If I can ask a question in Spanish, get the answer in Spanish, understand that Spanish, and then boom, new Spanish learned, great, that's step one. Step two, or perhaps part two, if there's something that I don't understand, the context around, like let's say there's a word that I reach that I don't understand. Simply by the context of what's around that word or phrase, or breaking down that word or phrase for like what are the prefixes, what are the suffixes, what do I think the root word is, if I can break that down and infer the meaning, or do my own research, my own further research in the language, and then do that in language learning, that's explorative literacy. Understanding the context, the full context, being able to break down a word or a phrase, and then do my own research, my own studying in the language, that's when I say that you have completely reached both conversational fluency and explorative literacy. But how do you get there? How do you get to any of that? Well, I explained in another video not terribly long ago that there are 4 different strands, 4 different pillars of learning a language. And there's this guy, Paul Nation, very smart dude. He wrote about these. There is meaning-focused input, meaning-focused output, there's language instruction, and then there's fluency development. You need to spend a little bit of time in language instruction, learning the grammar, learning the syntax, learning how the language actually operates. Then you need a lot of meaning-focused input, because that's the easier one to digest and to learn, but that develops your recognition. Chances are you want to develop a sense of recall, of production of the language. That's when you need the meaning-focused output. Both of those have the focus on the meaning, on the context. The thing that you're doing has to apply to you. You have to make it personal. If you don't, you're not going to care about it. You're just not. You cannot neglect, though, fluency development. Practice the things that you've learned. Practice the things that you've learned in the context that you've learned them so that you can practice those patterns, so that you can develop the recall, so that you can develop your recognition, so that you can truly learn the language. And then whenever you do more of that fluency development, not only will all of it come easier, the words and the phrases and stuff, but the grammar will be more natural to you. You won't have to think as much about forming a sentence or what does this or that mean. You can just move on to the next thing and learn it even faster. So that's how I'd say for any one of those that you can attain, if it's not native fluency, like your native language, focus on that. Focus on those and be clear on your goals, what kind of fluency you're going for. Because knowing what you're working towards and keeping that in mind the whole way through, you're going to keep pushing you through those hills and valleys of language learning, because there are hills and there are valleys. It gets hard and sometimes it gets boring. Sometimes it just sucks and you just don't want to do it. But keeping that goal in mind will keep you pushing towards it. This was actually an expansion of something that I covered that I talked about briefly on TikTok and on Instagram. So follow me there too if you want to learn more. Let me know what else that I can do, because there's these things like mindsets and universal grammar that I want to cover, as well as target language grammar. But what else would you want to see? Because I'm thinking like live streams, if there was like in target language let's plays, or just like daily activity walkthroughs and like days in the life. I'm thinking of that to help you reach the goals that you have in whatever foreign languages. But what do you want to see? Please let me know that in the comment down below. If you like this video, if there's something else that you got from this video, let me know of that too. Subscribe here, as well as the other places that I'm at too. Check out my books, all these other things. But as I mentioned before, I'm really here to help you. If you buy my books, great. If you use my materials, great. If you watch 5 seconds of one of my videos and get something that helps you, great. Mission accomplished. I'm here to help you. So thank you, appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.